Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the AusCannaPodcast. I'm your host, Christina McMullen, and today I'm thrilled to have a truly special guest with us, Melanie Wentzel. Melanie is a healthcare strategist, cannabis professional, author, and award-winning thought leader. To say she's been a driving force in the healthcare and cannabis sectors would be an understatement. Her influence has been nothing short of transformative. Today, we're diving into something particularly exciting. Melanie's upcoming book, Cannabis Queens, set to launch this December at MJBizCon. We'll explore the inspiration behind the book, what readers can look forward to, and get a glimpse of the fascinating stories Melanie's bringing to life. So, without further ado, let's dive right in to my conversation with Melanie. All right, good deal. Here we go. Do you enjoy cooking or baking more?
I'm a notoriously terrible cook, actually, and the only thing that I cook, oh no, that's not true. I cook a few things well, but the thing I tend to cook very well is cannabis edibles, because when I have my when I'm prescribed my cannabis medicines, my cannabis flower, often for me, one of the ways that I get a really great therapeutic benefit is through creating a coconut oil out of those and baking. So I guess I'm going to say bake.
Bake? I like it. So are you a sweet baker or a savory baker?
A sweet baker. So a classic brownie, a cookie. And of course, because I use coconut oil, I end up using vegan recipes, and I'm not a vegan, but there's some beautiful like vegan sweet recipes that are no cook or super simple for someone like me who's not the world's best cook. So yeah.
I love it though. I love it. Okay. How do you stay motivated?
Oh, look, ADHD is a superpower. And I'm really open about that. You know, one of the things that throughout my life that I've had to work with is having ADHD, and also really being driven to be a high performer. And in a Venn diagram, those two overlap significantly. So although there can be a lot of distraction, and there can be, there really needs to be a set of strategies in place. I've now spent kind of over a decade honing professional strategies to help me be a high performer. And I love to perform and I love to achieve. And that's what actually gives me a massive dopamine rush, massive serotonin rush, keeps that cortisol at bay. So for me, I think ADHD is one of those things overlapped with that real desire for achievement, which I enjoy. But achievement, to be clear, is not for me about accolades. It's about having a platform where I can share other people's stories or messaging that's important to me. So it's a really meaningful kind of achievement for me. That's what matters. And when I have an achievement, for me, it's also about making sure that there's value in that for others. So the value in achievement for me has to be win-win for everyone in the circle.
I feel like this leads beautifully into my next question. What's the most meaningful gift you've ever received?
Oh gosh, that is such a great question. All right, I can tell you the wildest gift I've ever received, but while the meaningful one comes to me, an ex-partner of mine put a photo of us on a digital billboard in Fortitude Valley in Brisbane for our anniversary. And it was so romantic. I mean, it was amazing. And it was on Eka night. So I thought we were going to the Eka for a Dagwood dog. And he said, I just got to pull over here. I was like, this is the side of the road in the valley. What's happening? And he said, look up. And it was this humongous photo of us that said like happy anniversary. So that's definitely the kind of wildest gift. In terms of the most meaningful gift, actually, it's the gift of time. And it's the gift of time of those people who have shared knowledge with me throughout my career, mentored me, supported me, corrected me, helped me to grow. And also of late with the work this year, it's been the sharing of stories to create Cannabis Queens. So the most meaningful is always the gift of time. And, when it comes to love languages, quality time is it for me. So anytime I can sit and have a yap and learn and grow and share value and hold space and have space held for me. That's what's most meaningful.
I like it. I like both of them, to be
Yeah, the
honest. I
first
mean,
one's really good.
yeah, no, I like it. I don't know how I would have felt about let's pull over on the side of the road and look up and seeing myself but I'm sure on some level, I think I probably would have cried. To be honest, I think I probably would have been like, oh, that's just the sweetest, cutest thing
No, it was pretty cute. It was pretty cute. I mean, he is an ex though, but it was cute at the time.
ever. Touche, touche.
Yeah.
Um, what is your favorite way to connect with friends?
Oh, that's beautiful. So certainly quality time, for me, it's just about spending that time. But also, I really love a bit of girl law, a bit of a girl sesh, a bit of a girls' night out. I love people. I love all people, but my quality time with my friends and my circle of women, it should always be fun. I saw this great meme yesterday. I actually shared it on my Instagram and it said, God, it must be so boring being a boy. And it was like 15 women in a kitchen, drunk, singing at the top of their lungs. And I was like, oh yeah. So I love that, like a bit of a kitchen hang. So I think it's just any space where we can be ourselves, have a good time, and have a laugh, have some fun, have some joy, because life is hard and it's long and it's also very short. So yeah, anywhere we can kind of create a place of joy.
What is your favorite way to practice self-care?
uh it's something I'm not very good at, actually. um yeah, that's oh, you've cut me right to the core there. It's something I'm not. It's something I traditionally haven't been good at because I run at a million miles an hour. It's hard to switch off at night. And because I really want to add value and do as much as I can with my career and my platform for now and for as long as I can. I mean, I'm 45 years old, so for me, and I only started university at 32. Prior to that, I spent years traveling and living overseas. I've lived in the US, the UK, France, South Africa. I've traveled to 26 countries. I spent my time running around the world having a ball. So now I've come back and I'm in my career era. And so I haven't typically made good quality time for myself and self-care time. I would say I'm more conscious of it this year, and I'm more conscious that the best way to regulate, my nervous system is to slow down. And if I'm very honest and give you a brutal and practical answer, in the evenings when the computer gets shut off, I work from home, so it's also making that differentiation, right? So when the computer gets switched off at the wall and the dog hears that and then runs over, it's taking the dog for a walk. And honestly, it's time on the couch watching absolute trash. Like, I'm talking F Boy Island, like rubbish. I did honestly, I know I'm giving you all the juice today. I did just watch The Sopranos end to end. So, but I'll pick a series, and I think that self-care and quality time is just time where I can let my brain settle, be still, and jump into someone else's story, so that there's little requirement of me, and that keeps me fresh for the next day, because then I get up and I'm adding value, adding value. So I guess self-care is that switching off piece. And usually for me, it's me and the dog on the couch watching, getting deep into a series with a great story, or not with a great story, like F by Island.
I feel that. I feel that so much because self-care is tricky and it was never anything that was important to me. And
Mm,
it was never anything I really thought about. And then you're a mom, like I'm a mom.
absolutely.
Your boy is just slightly older than my boy, but you get so consumed with being a mom and everybody else comes before you and you don't, yeah, self-care. It's this funny concept. And just like you, I didn't just turn 45. I turned 45 in January. So I guess I'm closer to 46 now. But it is weird, like going into my 40s, and especially here, in the last like 2 years, I have switched a little and I've
Yeah,
started almost scheduling self-care.
love it.
It
I
sounds
love it.
weird, but yeah,
Oh, I love it. It's such a good idea.
I literally block times off to where I'm like, nope, this is what I'm doing something for me today, right? Whether that is I'm going for a facial, I'm going for no, today I'm gonna walk with the dog in the park and I'm going to the bakery and I'm gonna get something sweet, like it's literally I've blocked off 2 hours and this is just and it the other thing that's important is turning the screen off,
Oh yeah, for sure.
right?
Because I'm like I've become very good at turning off my notifications on my phone. Not my do not disturb, like I just don't allow notifications from my work-based apps. But the thing is, with a career like mine, all the apps are kind of work-based apps, and I still want to play on Instagram or I still want to whatever. So if I can keep Outlook and LinkedIn without notifications in my downtime, that's a win for me. And you make a good point about setting that time apart. And I do think I was thinking back to what was the last time I really, it was only 3 months ago. It was nothing, tragic, but it was only 3 months ago that I really invested in some self-care time. And it was when I was traveling. So, and thinking back on it, actually, when I travel is when I'm great at self-care. So, in the past 12 months, I've spent 2 of those months in the UK and Europe traveling. I did a month with my son for his 17th birthday. And, there's nothing like walking around Rome in the summer sun with a cocktail, which they sell at the corner store, Aperol spritzing through the streets. So that's kind of nice self-care. And the other one is just 3 months ago when I went over to London. I was over for 3 weeks. I went for the Women Changing the World Summit. I went to launch my first book. So there were things that I was doing there, and I did some work when I was there. But I'll tell you what, I haven't had so many baths in a long time as I took on that trip. So it was like it was like have a bath, order some food in. So I think it's just in those quiet spaces and those spaces where I relieve myself of responsibility to perform, and I think that's a good reflection for me actually. And I'll walk away from this kind of chat focusing more on that.
We all need more self-care. I think
Yeah.
I think that's an area of opportunity for a lot of us. Last question, and it is a listener question
Ooh.
from Steve in Margaret River, WA. And he wants to know if animals could talk, which one do you think would be the rudest?
Oh my God, it's got to be Mu Deng, this baby hippo in Thailand that's taking
Oh,
the world by storm. Can you
yes.
have seen her? This little queen is so angry at everyone all the time, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
It's mooding for sure. So topical. I'm mad for it. My whole feed is mooding, and I'm obsessed.
I will 100% make sure I drop some videos of her in the show notes because
Oh, yeah, please.
you know what? I never would have thought about that because when I got the listener question, I was like thinking, oh, I don't know. I'm trying to toy over but the second you said that, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, timely, on point.
Yeah,
Love
she's
that
a
little,
good little queen. I'm into it. It's so good.
yeah, she's a pygmy hippo, right?
Yeah,
Pygmy,
yeah. So,
yeah.
which I think is just a bit because you can see her mum in some of the clips. So I think it's more that they're shorter as well. The pygmy. I mean, listen, I am not the hippo SME, I can tell you, but I'm almost a Mudeng SME. But I think the pygmy thing is about the height as well, like that
Shorter
overall.
legs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, she's just adorable. But I must say, my dog, which many people in industry have met on Zoom, and even at meetings because I take her along. Her name's Iggy, after Iggy Azalea, um, and she's a little pug. And so I love to take Iggy around and for people to meet her and to show off her personality. And to me, it's beautiful. But actually, now I've seen clips of Mudeng, I realize that Mudeng is basically a pug and Iggy is basically Mudeng. So if anyone is into this pygmy hippo craze, please get a pug because I can tell you it's just the most beautiful thing in the world.
Like I said, I am definitely going to make sure that there are some videos of her in the show notes for any of you guys that don't, I guess, who aren't on the pygmy hippo craze right now. You're missing out. You're missing out. I'm just saying. All right, Melanie. All right. For the listeners who don't know anything about you, do you mind just giving us a brief introduction to who you are?
Yes, absolutely. So if I start with who I am at my core, I'm a woman who cares about adding value in this world, who makes time for joy, and who prioritizes the idea of community. In terms of who I am in my life, I've been in Brisbane 10 years, so I think I'm safe to call myself a Brisbane girl. I think I've definitely hit that mark. I'm a mum to a beautiful, almost 18-year-old boy who is going to graduate high school and who's heading to uni to study journalism. And he's the light of my life. I've lived all over the world. And when I was 32, someone said to me, I've written you a recommendation out of the blue. I've written you a recommendation letter for the psychology course at Griffith University because you would be perfect for it. And if you don't want to do that, I'll get you one for politics. And I said, no, psychology is great. So I kind of had this, the universe kind of sent me this piece. So I studied psychology. I came out of that degree and became a behavior therapist and realized that is really hard work. It's really hard on the soul, it's hard on the body, it's hard on the mind. So I thought, rather than putting out 1,000 fires a day, and this will tell you exactly who I am, right? Rather than putting out 1,000 fires a day, I want to put out 100 fires a day. So I became a family therapist supporting families with children on the spectrum because I worked with children preschool aged on the spectrum with kind of major behavioral deficits. And I became a family therapist, and I quickly realized actually this is even more challenging because this one really gets you in the heart, because there are some people and some families doing it tough. And as much as I was adding value, I just didn't feel it was where I was called to be. And I thought to myself, actually, policy is where I can make real change. So I went and I worked with a group of companies for the next 5 years, and I got to work on some incredible projects. I was the projects manager for education and innovation nationally, and then the operations manager. And I got to deliver $6 million worth of healthcare transformation projects for state governments, Department of Health, primary health networks, major healthcare transformation projects working on Australia's public health system. And I loved that. And it's where I felt I was called to be. But I was already a cannabis consumer. I was already a cannabis patient. I was already a cannabis investor. I already was connected with and of cannabis. So when the opportunity came up to switch gears professionally and bring my decade of experience in the public health system and high performing healthcare over into the cannabis industry, I thought this is perfect because this is where I can really add value, where I can really support change, and where I can make things better for Australian patients. So that's what I do. That's kind of my backstory. Now I've been a consultant in the cannabis industry. I've worked in Australia, a lot of work in the US and also in the UK. I've been in the industry just on 2 years. And now I'm the healthcare strategy and programs lead at Cannam. I do some consulting on the side, and I'm also an author with 3 books coming out this year.
I love it. I love it, girl. Like, I like the fact that you kind of downplayed it. I do a little this, a little this. Oh, and by the way, I got 3 books coming out this year.
I know, it's so good. And I left one out, but let me drop this in as well. Because I am really proud of it. This year as well, I won the 3rd place globally in the Women Changing the World Awards as the emerging thought leader, which is incredible. I was presented by Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, Dr. Tara Trent, who runs all of these amazing schools in Africa, and just this amazing community. So that has also given me a global platform. And again, remember back at the conversation start when I said I'm into achievement, but I'm into achievement because it's a tool to add value. So I got to present at the Women Changing the World Summit in London, and I presented on the role of women in cannabis to a room of over 100 high-profile, high-performing women, most of whom were cannabis naive. So I got to change some hearts and minds. So that was a real honor as well.
Let's talk about that for a second. Like, what was that like? I mean, again, the Sarah Duchess. I mean, royalty.
Fergie's the
Hello.
best. Oh my God, she's amazing. I love her. Yeah, it was brilliant. Look, I don't typically get nervous. I always say, put me in a football stadium with a microphone and I'll slay, right? I love it. I love to talk. I love to present. It's just something that's a part of me. But I've got to say, it was a big room, and I don't even mean in the numbers. I mean in the kind of gravity of who was in that room. It was not lost on me, believe me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot. But I thought to myself, the point of getting here, the point of building your career, the point of becoming seen is so that you can share the ideas and the values that matter to you. Because we all work towards and for the things we believe in, right? No, and well, maybe not everyone does. So I can speak for myself. I work and I work hard. And I do that because there's things I believe in. So for me, the higher I climb in terms of the more visible I become and the bigger rooms I get in, I'm able to share what I believe matters, which is the destigmatization and the removal of shame of cannabis as a medicine, and in other markets where adult use is permitted, of cannabis for lifestyle and well-being. And also about sharing knowledges and sharing stories. So I had 7 minutes, and in that 7 minutes, I shared a little about the history. I talked a lot about the work that women are doing, and I got to quote a few people who had already shared their stories with me. It was a real honor and privilege. I quoted Helen Kapelos, who many will know from our industry. I quoted Professor Kylie O'Brien, who many will know from our industry. I quoted some amazing American cannabis nurses. So again, it's about adding value and just using that platform to share that space with others.
No, I love it, girl. I love it. So I know that you've written 3 books, or you've got 3 books coming out, but we're going to start with Cannabis Queens because I'm super excited about this. So, what inspired you to write Cannabis Queens?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you the honest story of that because I've got a nice easy vox pop for it, but I'm actually going to tell you, I'd been in the cannabis industry professionally for a year, and at the start of this year, some professional changes came my way, and it put me into a space where I spent 3 days it took, and I asked myself, is this my calling? Am I adding value here? With the change in my business, will I continue to be accepted here? Will I still be a desirable consultant? And it was hard. I really sat with that. And obviously now looking back at that, I think, oh God, how ridiculous. But that was my truth. Yeah, at that time, I really had to unpack for myself where I went next. And then in that time, during those 3 days, the question I asked myself is, what is needed in this space? And what do I love in this space? What brings me joy? And what's needed is representation, and representation of women, and not only the work we do with cannabis, but the relationship we have with cannabis, and the fact that it is not shameful and should not be. And the thing that I loved was the women that I had worked with, and it was sharing women's stories. And there's a lot of great stories from women, men, from all genders. But for me, it's the stories of the women because they're also my story. So at the end of those 3 days, I came out and I thought, great, quick, get the new branding up. And also, what are you going to do that's really special? You love women's stories, and you love women's stories in the cannabis space. How do you tell them? So I decided to write the book. I pitched it the next week. I pitched it to a publisher. I took 3 slides. The first slide was prohibition posters, right, with all the girls in their negligees and the arched backs and all
Yeah,
that.
the reefer madness. We know it. We're familiar.
Exactly.
Yep, yeah.
And, I sort of said this was 100 years ago. And then my second slide was images I'd Googled that morning: cannabis woman, 420 cannabis girl. And it was a bunch of girls in their knickers ripping bongs. Nothing wrong with that. I fully support. I love those girls. I love those women. They are serving, right? But it's not it's not who I am as a woman in cannabis. And I looked and looked and couldn't find CEOs in cannabis. I couldn't find founders. I couldn't find media specialists. I couldn't, it's just the representation just isn't there. So I literally said to the publisher, and I flicked back to the first slide, I said, 120 years ago, today. And this doesn't represent me. And then the third slide was, these are really three incredible stories that I kind of anchored the pitch on. And one was, they were three mothers, and they were three of the mothers that changed legislation, cannabis legislation in their region. So in Australia, I had a photo of Lucy and Dan, and I talked about what happened there. I actually got teary when I told that story. And then I showed, Charlotte and Paige Figge in the US, one of the most publicized childhood cannabis stories in the world, and then I showed Charlotte and Billy Caldwell in the UK, and I'm delighted to call Lucy and to call Charlotte my friends, so I was able to say, look, these are just three examples that are the stark opposite of these girls in their knickers, but we are everything in between. And they loved it. And that's how kind of Cannabis Queens was born. That was in February this year, and I've been working very hard on it. And in fact, tomorrow I sign off the very final edit so that it can get ready to go to print.
That's a whirlwind.
Whirlwind. What a year.
Whirlwind?
Oh my God, I'm tired.
Yeah, but you know what? That resonates with me in the sense that sometimes, things don't necessarily go the way you want, and it causes you to step back and kind of pull in and reassess, and you ask yourself, well, is this what I wanted to do? And how do I like what you're saying, how do I add value, but how does that value stay in line with who I am?
Mm.
And it's a struggle sometimes to sit in that space and then come out on the other side of that space. And I love the fact that you came out and you had this idea and you literally, like, by the sounds of it, pulled it out of thin air, a couple Google searches, here some images, and boom, okay, I got this idea. Let's run with it. And
Mm-hmm.
you presented it with such stellar performance, if you will, that the publisher was like, let's do this.
Yeah. I think the stories, yeah, you're right. And I was a sparkling conduit for this, this idea. But actually, I'm quite a spiritual person as well. And I I support all faiths, and I don't prescribe to a particular faith. If I go to temple, I go to a Buddhist temple, but I really only go twice a year. I really just live a life of being conscious of spirituality in the universe. And so I really believe that by pitching this story, and here's the hot tip: publishing deals don't pay you, you pay for them. Okay. So I've used my own money and my own time, and every night and every morning, every weekend, because to me, Cannabis Queens is the ultimate act of service to the women of this industry, and not just the women now, but all of the women who have come before us. And these stories are begging to be told, and I'm simply the conduit. And it was only ever going to work if everyone trusted me enough to tell their stories. And so by framing this as an act of service for myself, it allowed me to open up and create a space where, 75 women interviewed with me, 212 women completed in-depth surveys, and there's been lots of other informal conversations around it. And so I've been really blessed, and really, the universe has really supported this. Yes, okay, cool. We've got someone who knows how to get these stories told. And the stories that have been shared with me are so generous and so beautiful and very honest and very raw. And there are things in this book, including things about my own life, that that are quite shocking, that have never been revealed. And I mean, high profile women in our industry, ones who have been here doing the work for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and ones who are some of the highest profile women in cannabis, and I mean in regulator type positions, in peak body type positions, who share their stories. And the stories, I say at the start of the book, this is a story about women and cannabis and the relationship between them, but really it's a book about women. And it just happens to be how they explore that relationship with cannabis. And I put a warning at the start of the book, and I say, the experience of being a woman is not always easy, and it's not always safe. And there are mentions in this book of sexual assault, suicidal ideation, sick children, children dying, abuse, all sorts of things. And women have so bravely and boldly shared. And even those who chose to remain anonymous just have my absolute heart, because that was the right choice for them now. And I was so grateful for them for even sharing, you know, but in a lot of cases there's also legal battles in place, so they couldn't speak and be named. So it's just wild. So ultimately I'm the conduit for these amazing stories, and it's a privilege and an honor. And I want the book to do really well. Obviously it's great for me if it does well, because it means I can spend more time and energy on it and make it more of a focus of what I do. But actually, the reason I want it to do well is because I want people to hear these stories, because they are fucking brilliant. Brilliant.
I think it's beautiful. So for the listeners that don't know, I did get a sneaky copy. So I have had a peruse through. I'm definitely have not read the whole thing, but from what I have seen and what I have sat down with, there a couple of chapters there, it's beautifully written in the sense that, you know, you're telling these stories and then you're mixing in cannabis history and how they're changing things, and it's it's beautiful the way you've tied it all together, and it just
Thank you.
it's very inspiring, right? And I think um, I love the quotes that you pull out as well, right? There's all these little quotes that you pull out. And I mean, one of the quotes that stuck with me was, we all get our teeth kicked in this industry. And I think it was by Heather Manis. And I was like,
Yep.
I don't know who that is, but it's so true. Like, it makes me feel better to know that, like, when
Yeah.
I have a rough day, somebody else out there is also having a rough day. We all get our teeth kicked in. And I don't know why, but it was just very, I don't want to say relaxing. That's not the word I want to use, but it was very like, I had a moment where I read that and it sat with me for a second and I was like, yeah,
Huh. That's it, right? I'm so pleased to hear that, because, you know, that's it. The audience for this book is not just other women in cannabis, it's everyone in cannabis, and it's everyone in society, whether you have an interest in cannabis or not. Because, as I say, it's a book about women. It is framed in cannabis culture, but we want these stories to not just sit inside our own industry vacuum, but to spread further, because that's where the magic happens. You know, we're already believers. Like, everyone in this industry already loves cannabis. We already know about it. There's no stigma and shame here. What we need to do is kind of penetrate outside of our industry bubble. And I'm going to make you feel even better about that. And that is one of my favorite quotes as well by Heather. I'm going to make you feel even better about that by telling you who she is. Heather has been working in the US cannabis industry for decades. She is the founder of Cannabis Nurses Network. She got the law changed to include PTSD as an approved condition in one of the states. She is massive. She's amazing. And you'll recognize her when you see her. She's the woman who gets around with the two long braids down the side. So you'll see her and you'll go, oh, that's Heather. She has been here and doing it for ages. She is one of the OGs. And she still says, we all get our teeth kicked in here, right? So it doesn't matter how long you've been here, how impactful you've been, how many people you work with, how many patients you've nursed. The experience is common to all of us. And that is, I think it's vindicating. And I do think it creates a sense of peace. And so that's important to me as well. And that's one of the impacts that I really want the book to have.
like I said, I read that quote and I was like, it sat well with me. I was like,
Mm.
oh, maybe I just needed to hear it in the moment in this space that I'm in right now. But I was just like, oh God, that's wise words, Heather. Like I said, I'm not sure who you are, but wise words. Um, what was something that was really, I guess, surprising that you learned along the way while you were writing the book?
um, so two responses to that. Something that was surprising that shouldn't have been was the rich and diverse backgrounds of all of these amazing women. So again, you know, I've got the privilege of sharing things in this book that women have never shared. And, you know, what shouldn't have been surprising to me, but was this rich history that these women have within and without cannabis. Addison Morris, who is this founder and CEO of the US Women's Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is 74. She wrote the foreword for the book. She is amazing. She has tens of thousands of women that she has shepherded through this industry and continues to do it. She is a staunch feminist. She shared with me a lot about her background. She's on the FBI's dangerous woman list. And as a white woman, she was also a Black Panther for a period. And the Black Panthers are a social justice movement in the US, for those that aren't familiar, that were there around the time of the Vietnam War. And she, by accident, fell into a Black Panthers meeting and stayed. So these women, other people like Sue de Gregorio Rosen, she was at Woodstock, and she will tell you the stories, and it's incredible. So that surprised and delighted me, that there are the women in this industry are so much richer and deeper and have stories that they were so willing to share. And that's magical to me. So that's what I think actually makes the book really interesting. The thing that I learned about myself is that actually this book, and again, I think it was a bit of a universe piece. I think it was the universe coming to me at this time in my life, saying, okay, we're going to actually heal a bunch of your trauma now without you knowing you need it. We're actually going to heal your trauma. And what we're going to do is we're going to call in hundreds of women from all around the world to sit and hold space with you and not talk about anything to do with your trauma, but to quietly heal your trauma. And I just mean like typical life trauma, childhood stuff, normal stuff, ex-husbands, being a single mum. Like, we all have some trauma. I talk a little bit about mine in the book as well, but I just didn't realize I needed healing. And this book has been incredibly healing. And it was just the act of sitting with women and talking, not even about myself. So that really surprised me. And I felt it happening gradually. And as I started to notice as the interviews went on, I would tell the queens I was talking with, I'd go, this is just such a healing process. And even more special than that to me is the fact that a number of the women have come back to me later when I've checked edits with them or whatever, and thanked me. I'm really humbled by it and said, thank you for helping me to heal this part of myself by giving me space to talk about it. I mean, that shit's magic. Do you know what I mean? So for me, the book has done, it's done what it needed to do for me. It's done what it needed to do for other women. And it also is now this beautiful, fragile like a bomb, waiting to explode our stories all over the world and to show people who the women of cannabis are. That we're so much, we're like, you hit the bong in your knickers, like, I'm here for it. But also, that's not everyone, and I want everyone to be seen. So it's been, there's been lots I didn't expect. It's been a real gift, to be honest. It's been really special.
I do like the fact that you talked, it wasn't even women in our own backyard here in Australia, that you took the time and you looked around the world and you were like,
Yeah.
well, who are the women within the cannabis industry that are movers and shakers around the world, that are changing, that are doing things their own way,
Yeah.
and like, again, making waves and doing it their own way. I think it's, again, I haven't read the whole book, but what I have read, it's very empowering to some of these women and the stories that they're telling. You're like, yeah, like you're cheering them along, and then you're like, yeah, look, yeah, you go, queen. Like, it's
Yeah.
unreal.
Amazing. That's so good. And that's how I wanted to feel, and by showing, about 50% of the, look, about 40% of the women covered in the book, because I talk generally about women
Mhm.
and our work, but if we talk about specific examples and specific kind of quotes and interviews, about 40% are from North America, because they have the longest, largest, most established series of submarkets in the world, right? So that's a very natural thing. Probably, I'm going to say another 40% are Australian, because it's really important for me to show the women in our industry, but also to include my friends. Like, it's, to say, like, sis, let me tell your story. I think that's important, because the other thing this book should do is also raise women's profile to help raise their careers. Because at the end of the day, we want to do great work and we want to get paid, right? So if I can elevate someone's career in any way, that's what I want to do. So then we've got another 20% of women who have come from everywhere. I've got a lovely, lovely collection of women from Humboldt. I've got a really great Northern Californian contingent in the book. But, even one of my favorite stories and one of my favorite queens to interview was from Colombia, and it was the only interview we almost needed a translator for, but in the end we got there. And this is Mayra Correa, who runs Gaia, and she runs a legal cannabis cultivation facility. But her father was a cannabis kingpin in Colombia back in the 80s. Americans came down into Northern Colombia. So she's an Indigenous woman, and her father was a leader of their people. And Americans came down and said, we want to grow cannabis on this mountain of the perfect conditions. And they kind of struck up a deal. He would oversee it. They would pack it into boats, send it up to North America. It made that family very rich. She said, we got to move to the city, out of the desert into the city, go to great schools and do all these things. And she said, cannabis for me really, even if it was illegal, it really made my childhood and my life wonderful. So as an adult, she's gone back to it. But now, and here's the full circle, right? She specifically seeks out and hires women who are coming out of abusive homes, women who haven't had access to education, women who haven't had access to money, women who have a lot of children who are unable to care for them, women who are in need, women who have social barriers to overcome. And she hires them for her cultivation team, and she's got 6 on there at the moment. And a lot of them stay with her, year after year after year, because she gives them employment to give them an opportunity to have a better life through legal cannabis cultivation. She grew up in the desert, going up in the mountain with her dad to run the illegal drug trade. So by seeking stories from all over the world, we get a better diversity of stories. I mean, she's cool as hell. She's amazing. She does amazing work. And actually, some of the cannabis that she cultivates is in the Australian market. So we're actually all connected. Yeah. I know,
That
it's wild.
that is wild. Look at that full circle come round and round.
Exactly. We're all one sisterhood. We're all one global community, and we're all more the same than we are different. And anyone who is playing the game of we're too different, we're doing this, I'm running my own race, it's a race to the bottom, and power to you. But community matters, and understanding that we are all connected as people, but also as a cannabis community. It's so important to understand, because that's where we do our best work.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I'm all about collaboration and
Mm-hmm.
lifting. I don't remember now who I was just talking to. It's a previous podcast, and I'm still going to screw the whole quote up. And I feel like I should write it out and put it on a post-it so I get it right. But it's the whole tide, the rising tide lifts all boats, you know?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's the perfect quote. It's the perfect quote. There's no need to compete. You can be competitors. This is really important. Put this one on a post-it. We can be competitors, but still a part of a community. Okay. Being a competitor doesn't mean mortal enemy. Being a competitor means we're working in the same space and we have a similar product or place or position, but actually we're still one community. And by sharing knowledge and by rising that tide together, all the boats go up. There's plenty of room for everyone.
I completely agree that there's room for all of us here for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely. The industry is huge, huge. And we all have our own little space, right? And I think again, together we're gonna lift it up for sure.
absolutely. And we all do something different as well. Even when we're competitors, we're doing something different. My mind, like everyone's, goes straight to product, product competitors, but it's not. There's content makers in this industry, there's marketing people in this industry, there's insurance people in this industry. So, while we're competing for the green dollar, we're often doing it in different ways with different services. And even if we're product companies competing in quotes with another product company, we still have different suppliers, different strains, different formulations, different emphasis. One cares about terpene profiles, one cares about organic sun grown, so it's okay. It's just about, I think when people have more confidence, and a lot of people are very confident, there are some very well established brands, but I think as people grow in the industry as well, and as companies grow and become more experienced as well, their brand position becomes more settled, and you find people with the strongest brand positions are often the most confident, because it comes all the way back to their vision, their mission, and their values. It's business 101, right? It applies to cannabis. Just because it's cannabis doesn't mean you can overlook business fundamentals.
No, business is business at the end of the
Correct.
day.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. What role do you think women have to play in the future of the cannabis industry?
Look, I love that question, because the answer is, there is no limit. I think there are some barriers that we need to overcome to get to a place where we have equality of opportunity. So the goal is to get to equality of opportunity. I talk about this in the book. So if you picture a spectrum, and at one end is inequality, and at the other end is equality of opportunity, and I'll define that. That's not equality of outcomes. That's not necessarily quotas, for example. It's not necessarily that women are doing XYZ exactly equal with men. It's an equality of opportunity. It's an equality of being able to access the opportunity to compete for those roles, for those outcomes, because that honors women. When we say equality of outcomes, yes, the outcome should be that women earn the same as men, that women are equally represented on boards, all of those things. But I'm not fighting for that. I'm fighting for equality of opportunity, where there is truly equal opportunity, because that honors women. Because if we can get to an equal opportunity, we don't need any hand-holding, mate. Like, look out. We just need to get to equality of opportunity. So how do we get there? How do we go from inequality to equality of opportunity? Well, the road between those things is through equity, through equitable access to opportunity. A lot of people think that inequality gets to equality, and then that's not good enough. So then we go to equity, which is where we give a leg up to women, or someone who's disabled, or someone who has a diverse gender, or whatever it is. Actually, I see it differently. I believe that equitable approaches to business are a tool we use to achieve opportunity of outcome. And the perfect example is the social equity programs in the US cannabis industry. There are some states who do that very, very well. So by just giving a leg up, by just giving some extra support, by creating equity programs, by creating, books about women and the work that they do, which shine a light on that work, it means we'll get to a place of equality. It's not the other way around. So I think the answer is the opportunity is endless. I think women are already incredible leaders in our industry, but there are still a lot of barriers for us, and we have to consciously work to overcome them. And one of them, is and this is data I collected myself with the Cannabis Queens survey, 38% of women in the cannabis industry have experienced sexual abuse in industry. And sexual abuse ranges from minor abuses, minor, quote unquote, like, there's a couple of stories about a guy who goes around conferences sticking his tongue in women's ears, right through to actually sexual assault in the workplace, and someone who was fired and then blacklisted from a grow facility, for reporting. Women are still being made to trim topless in some places, and these are not fantasy stories. These are the reality. This data was collected between March and May 2024 by me. I know where the data came from. I can verify all those stories, but a lot of them are anonymous, and I wouldn't. But this is the reality. So the future is like, we're amazing, but we need to cut out some of the shit that's going on.
It's interesting that you quoted that stat, because on my post-it here, that's one of the stats that I pulled out, that I was kind of like, that's interesting that, yeah, it's almost 40% of the women in the cannabis industry globally have
Yeah.
experienced some sort of abuse while at work or while working. Like
Hmm.
that's, I mean, I guess I should also say that's probably not unique to the cannabis industry, so to
No,
speak.
no, no.
Um, but it is that's a shocking number when you stop to think about it.
Shocking, shocking, absolutely shocking. And if you break it down like this, if you're listening and you work in a cannabis company with 10 women, four of them have experienced some form of sexual assault at work or while working. And that differentiation is while working. That means, at conferences, at events, at work related dinners, for example, not just in the grow room or in the office or whatever it is. So, yeah, 4 in 10. And there are examples in the book. And what I've tried to achieve and what I think I've achieved with managing that data and talking about that data in the book is that I'm not on a witch hunt. I'm not out to attack anyone. There are plenty of men doing the right and the good thing. There are plenty of men in this industry who are raising women up. In fact, there were a large number of men who, when they heard about the project, recommended women who they think are amazing to me, right? But even though all that goodness exists, 40% of us, almost 40%, are still experiencing an abuse of a sexual nature of some type in the workplace. And when you look at gender-based discrimination, what we used to call sexism, that number goes up over 60%, right?
That was the other stat that I
There
pulled.
you go. Yeah, because they're shocking numbers.
That
Um,
blows me away because I'm like, good man, it's 2024. Why do we have such? I mean, look, I love the women that wear the shirts that say, buy weed from women. But here's my thing. I don't want somebody to tell me to buy weed from women because women are growing it. I want to buy weed from women because it's fucking fabulous. And
yes.
then I want to tell 10 of my friends, buy fabulous weed. Not
Yep.
women weed, fabulous weed.
Look, we all love fabulous weed, and I think we'll get there, right? So when I do have a buy weed from women shirt that I
Like I said,
proudly.
I'm not hating
No,
on it. I'm not
no,
hating on
I
it, but you see what I'm saying? Like I want
know.
to just
Yeah.
say it's fabulous. Who like, oh, give me the
Exactly. And when we get
equal.
there to that point of equality, we can. And and even some of the queens I interviewed said to me, and they were very staunch on this, and they were like, no, it's about meritocracy. It can't just be about like, yes, queen, slay queen. And I said to them, mate, the book is called Cannabis Queens. Like I said, I'm literally highlighting the work of women. I said, and no woman is here asking for a special favor because she's a woman. But when 40% of us are sexually abused and 60% of us receive gender based discrimination, and I've listed the examples in the book, not as an attack, not as a witch hunt, but if someone reads that book, noting that that discrimination can occur from men or women, it's not exclusively men, it's mostly men, it's not exclusively men that are doing it. Women hate on women often in this industry. I can think of a large number of examples. But while all of that's still occurring, we don't have an equal playing field. We aren't starting at the same starting line. It's like lining up all the men and women in the industry on the start line and then saying, if you're a woman, take, and you've received gender-based discrimination or what we used to call sexism, take one step back. If you've experienced sexual assault, take one step back. If you have been ignored or overlooked because of your gender, take one step back. If you have been in a meeting, and even if you're the senior leader and your stakeholder speaks only to the man, take one step back. And the men are still all on the fucking starting line, and we are all the way back here. So we just need to get us to the starting line. And we do that by highlighting women and our achievements and by
Mhm.
creating tools of equity. And a lot of the time, it's really informal. It's like shout out your friend. It's like have what you've done today. Have a woman on your podcast. Recommend a woman for a job. I do that all the time. Recommend women for board positions. I do that all the time. And it's just a cultural shift and it takes a lot of time. But if we can chip away at it, we're on the right path.
It is. It's a slow, steady thing, right? And I'm with you 100% in the sense that it's just that even playing field that we want, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Again, I just want to buy fabulous weed and then tell my friends about the fabulous weed that I just bought, right? It
That's
is.
it. That's it.
So, what's next for you, like after Cannabis Queens? So, okay, hold on before you answer that.
Yeah.
So the book comes out at the end of this year. You're
Yeah.
actually going to be in Vegas. Let's talk
Yes,
about that real quick before I ask you what's next. You're going to be in Vegas for the
I am.
is that the actual release party in Vegas?
It is. So
Yes.
I'm going to do the global release there for a couple of reasons. One is, and the simplest one is that I was invited by someone amazing to do so. So Addison Morris, who I mentioned earlier, CEO and founder of US Women's Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, of which I'm a member, an active member, said to me, "Do you want to do a US launch? And if so, let's do a Women's Cannabis Chamber of Commerce event as a part of MJBizCon and make it your book launch." I mean, what is my life?
How do you
Hello.
say no? How do you say no?
It's amazing. So I was like, oh my God, yes, is this actually, is this a possibility? And she was like, yep, we'd love to do it. So I was invited to do it, and it's the most amazing opportunity in the world. Off the back of that, and actually this is hot off the press, you're the first hearing it. I'm very excited. I have been invited to speak on the main program at MJBizCon.
Oh,
I know, it's so cool. I'm beside myself about it. Myself and two other amazing women, both American women, have been called to do a panel of three women, which is called Women Making an Impact in the Global Cannabis Industry.
oh, look at you go, girl.
Girl, again, what is my life? Like, but it's so good because that not only am I really honored by that invitation, and it's you know honestly, I literally can't believe what this year, the blessings of this year. But again, it's a chance for me to tell all of our stories. I'm not up there telling, it's not the Melanie Wentzel show. I'm up there, it's the Cannabis Queens show. That's why the book's not called Cannabis Queen, right? It's not about one woman, any one woman. It's about all of us. So for me, I feel honored by that I'm being recognized as someone who is a keeper of these stories and a great communicator of these stories, but really, it's all of us, and I get to take all of us on stage. So Vegas is shaping up to be amazing. I've also partnered with Blunt Brunch to be one of their supporters and promoters for their all women event as well. So it's very girly and fabulous at MJBizCon this year. And for anyone who's going, I cannot wait to meet you.
Oh, Blunt brunch. Man, I'm jealous. Blunt brunch.
Oh, I
Sign
mean,
me up.
and again, that's run by Adelia Carrillo, who is one of the queens in the book. See, we're all connected, and when we come together, it's just so damn exciting.
I was gonna say we're doing great things. We're doing
We are
great
doing
things.
amazing things. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what Vegas is. I will do. I'm really delighted. I'm going to do a New Zealand launch as well. The beautiful Carmen Doran of Helios has invited me to come and do a book launch over there at their Auckland facility, and so we get to share those stories in New Zealand, and I'll organise that early next year. And then I will do an Aussie launch as well. Not planned yet, but I would imagine somewhere around UIC in February, because Brisbane is my hometown. You'll all be in town. So, why not throw a party? So stand by for updates.
Oh, I was gonna say it seems appropriate if we're all in town. You should throw a party.
I mean, why not?
Mm-hmm. Love it. So then to circle back, what's next for you after Cannabis Queens?
Um, oh, look, that's what I've been asking myself nonstop. So normally I'm someone who plans and has a vision quite far into the future. I take, because my day to day is so chaotic, and because I am just throwing myself at everything all the time, I like to have a longer range plan. And for the very first time, I really don't have one beyond about 6 months. I love working at Canam. I'm getting to do beautiful work there. So I do see, my future long term with Canam, because we're creating some incredible research that focuses on women's health. And the work I get to do there is really special. I think that will be my day to day into the future. In terms of Cannabis Queens, look, we've got this incredible activated community. What do I then take that community and do with us? Is it a second book where we profile other queens? Is it a podcast? Is it a learning platform where women, women are the educators? Is it a retreat where we go and do some self-care as cannabis queens? I see your eyes poke up at that one. I know that sounds fun, doesn't it? Is it a series of parties? God, I don't know. I think the universe will show me, and I invite women to tell me what they want, because I'm very fortunate now. I've got this beautiful brand, beautiful stories, a beautiful activated community, and I don't yet know what happens with that, but I'm very confident it's going to be a good time.
I'm sure it'll come together for you. I
Mm.
mean, to go all the way to make a full circle all the way back to the very, very beginning, perhaps you should schedule a little bit of self-care. Once you do the last of your book parties, maybe after UIC and the Aussie release, maybe sometime in March, you schedule just a little bit of self-care for yourself.
I mean, that sounds good. Where are we? We're now, we're only, 6 months away. So it sounds good. I'll try to do something little between now and then. Oh,
Oh,
let me tell you, I've got a quick one for you about the Vegas trip, and this is a bit of my self-care. So I'm indulging a curiosity of mine when I'm in Vegas. I couldn't resist taking a day out to do something completely silly and fun, and just because. So I've actually booked myself to go out into the desert for this massive 12-hour tour out to Area 51 and on the
ooh.
extraterrestrial highway, and do some like alien hunting and relive all of the movies, and you go to the diner that's in Independence Day and all of that stuff. So I'm going to do a bit of fun, silly kind of self-care, just to keep life fun and light and joyful, because they're all the things it should be.
Good. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I cannot wait to see, little Instagram stories of you out in Area 51. I love it. Pictures,
I'll
selfies with
take the
aliens.
book. Yeah, I'll take the book so we can pose with an alien. There'll be lots of that.
I love it. I love it. I really do. I really do. Gosh, Melanie, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and catching up with you.
Thank you.
As we
I
come
love
to
you
the
too.
end, as we come to the end here, what's your call of action to the listeners here?
Go to www.cannabisqueens.world and subscribe. Pop your email in, because we are going live with pre-sale November-ish. You'll see, and yeah, buy the book, read the stories. It's coming out in time for Christmas shopping, so buy the book for yourself and for someone else. And for anyone who, the book will be available everywhere: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere, all over the world, in bookstores, online, everywhere. It's having a massive release. But if you buy it direct from me at cannabisqueens.world, I'm doing some cute little presents and extras, and I'll be personally signing all of the books that go out. So you'll get autographed copies, which make a beautiful gift.
I was gonna say, I'm totally gonna buy it from you then because I want an autographed
Yeah.
copy.
Yeah, there's some cute things. There's some cute things that are getting made now, so I'll announce those. But there's some fun little extras and treats and accessories that'll come with, because we just want to tell the story and have fun. I mean, it's hot pink, for God's sake, and it says Cannabis Queens on it. Like, who doesn't love it?
I love it, that's for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, thank you so much for sitting here and talking with us. We love it. I'm so excited to see the book when it actually comes out in hard copy print. I will be definitely be one of the people that buys it from you on the website. And of course,
Thank you.
that will be in the show notes.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I just want to honor you as well, Christina. The work that you do is so important. And you do it from a place of adding value. You do it from a place of sharing your knowledge, and you've got some incredible knowledge. Of course, people may have picked up, you actually are also one of the queens in the book. So I know I've had the time to spend with you and really hear about your history and your passion, and I just want to honor what you do as well. It's really beautiful. It's really special. It's very generous. And you've really supported me, not only today, but always since we met. So I just want to absolutely honor you for that.
Oh, well, thank you, Melanie. And you girl, we should have said this at the very beginning that we actually first met when you came out to support me at Buds and Bowls.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah.
we did. That was our first in person.
It was indeed. So it's great to be in a space where I can return the favor and support you because I'm very excited to see what's next for you, Melanie.
Thank you, my love. I'll keep you posted.
And that's a wrap. A big thank you to Melanie for joining me today. As we mentioned during the show, Cannabis Queens is set for release this December, and you can find all the details in the show notes, including where to get your copy. As always, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to tune in. Don't forget to send in your rapid fire questions for a chance to win an AusCanna sticker pack. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review, hit the subscribe button, or share it with a friend. Your support helps the show grow and reach more listeners. Until we meet again, friends, remember, Ferris Bueller said it best. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.